Monday, September 25th, the Grand Forks City Council Committee of the Whole. Item 1, welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Salsky. Here. Weber. Lensky.
Here.
Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
And Bean.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Item number 2, updates and informational items. I have none. Item 3 is discussion items. 3.1 is the application for Class 3 on and off sale beer and wine alcoholic beverage license for Play It.
Chairman Weigel and members of Committee of the Whole, Finance Department has received an application for a Class 3 on-off sale beer and wine alcoholic beverage license from Play It LLC. Play It already exists in the community. They're operating as a kind of sports facility. They have basketball courts and some other open rink areas within their facility. They are putting in a food court right when you walk into the building. And then they also have a separate area to the back of the building that will have billiards and some more adult geared toward activities. They are asking within the facility that they be allowed to have beer and wine. They are planning on using the self-pour concept, and they'll have a dispenser in the food court area and then also back in the over 21 area. With their plan, when you go and purchase your card to self-pour the alcohol, you will, besides getting your card, when you go to swipe it at the machine, an attendant will have to go over and swipe their card as well to guarantee that the alcohol is only going to the card holder who is over 21. So they do have those safety protocols in place, which is similar to some other facilities and how they operate. So looking for input from the committee. Mr. Spatz is traveling. He was planning to try and connect tonight if there's questions, but in case that doesn't work out, we can always have him available at City Council as well, if you'd like.
Perfect. Thank you. Council discussion.
I'm assuming the application meets all other criteria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
They have been reviewed by the Health Department. Health, Fire, Police Department's already conducted background checks and signed off on that. Mr. Spatz does have another facility that has alcohol service in it in Florida and in Chicago. So no reported issues of any kind with him or with the manager that's proposed for on-site here. And I've heard no issues from other departments. Construction's still undergoing, but no license would be issued until payment of fees and that they have been approved by all the various departments that review these.
Perfect. Move approval.
We have a motion by Kavami, second by Osowski. Any further discussion? Ms. Lensky?
I have a quick question. You said there's other places in Grand Forks that have the self-pour?
Not in Grand Forks, but throughout the nation. It's kind of the new trend, especially for a lot of these multi-use facilities, that they're going to self-pour rather than having like table service or something like that. So I think in Grand Forks, the other self-pour we'll have once they get up and running would be the Taproom Brew Hall. There is some self-pour in Fargo. And then Bismarck does have a couple of similar arcade-type enterprises where they have self-pour there. But this would be the first activity center in Grand Forks that would have self-pour and be all ages.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 3.2, approve State of North Dakota Water Funding Resolution. Item A, resolution of the governing body of applicants for the State of North Dakota financing programs. Ms. Dorstedt.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Weigel, members of the committee. As you're aware, the State of North Dakota has various programs to help aid in the financing of these infrastructure projects that are below market rate. We have used these programs in the past, and there's a list of projects on the resolution and on the staff report that we would like permission to go ahead and apply for these programs as we move ahead toward those projects. It is required to designate an individual of the governing body to work through that and make the application and provide information through that process. The attached resolution lists the projects that would get approval for application and names Todd Phelan, City Administrator, as that designated individual. You should know that this would not give authority to commit the city to any long-term financing, just to apply. So any type of commitment would come with future approvals of the city council before any long-term financing is committed. With that, we do have the resolution attached for your consideration and would recommend approval.
Thank you, Ms. Dorset. Any comments? Motion for approval by Osowski, second by
Mr.
Dean.
Weigel?
Mr.
Weigel?
Sandy?
Not that I'm expecting Mr. Phelan to depart the city at any time soon. Should we change the language to be Todd Phelan, city administrator, or then current city administrator, or just the city administrator? To me, it seems like we should just name the position rather than the actual individual.
President Sandy, members of the committee, I can make that change, definitely. I believe that would be a change that could be made with this resolution. With that, I can do approval with that change.
Perfect. Ms. Osowski, are you good with that? Yes. Mr. Bean? Perfect. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3.3, mobile food licensure updates and ordinance. Mr. Bedard.
Thank you, Chair Weigel, members of the committee. You have before you a request to look at a policy for some reciprocity with mobile food units in town. This has been a topic of conversation with the health jurisdictions in the state, as this industry is very mobile and it crosses many jurisdictional boundaries. On the food safety side of things, we're all pretty well on the same food code, and we all have very similar training and MOUs with food and lodging at the state level. Our staff is standardized. So on the food safety side, we kind of concur with the food industry here that it's hard for them to go across a jurisdictional boundary and have to get licensed and inspected every time they do so. So we're looking to open that up for them a little bit. Not all the codes are similar. Fire code can change through the state or its enforcement and oversight of. And so there's been a lot of conversation on how it would be the best way to do some form of a reciprocity. And what these code changes do is they would allow for that. It separates out our definition of push cart, as that would be a lesser standard than what the food folks would agree to for a statewide licensure. It also allows them, they would have to come to City Hall and apply for a local license. It would be in the form of a fee waiver with this. It's also my understanding from Sherry that the licensing program doesn't accept a zero fee very readily. So if you wanted to impose a nominal fee of $1 or something with a motion, that could be entertained here. But looking for your approval to have a policy of reciprocity for mobile food units as they would move across the state. The out-of-state vendors would still have to be licensed in the state in some way, shape, or form with whatever jurisdiction that they'd be most likely to be working in. So I'd be happy to take questions and comments.
Any? Ms. Lunsky?
So is it the same, so it's food and fire?
So to obtain a license in the city, you have to have approval from the various departments. And so on the food side, our food code is pretty standard across the state. So it'd just be allowing the fire department to make sure that they're meeting our local fire code and have the proper ANSEL systems.
So today I was trying to find out what Fargo requires compared to what Grand Forks requires for food trucks. Do you have that information?
It gets a little bit challenging because it's based on what their menu is, as far as they have to have the right equipment for their menu. But the basis is they have to have sinks and hand sinks, water, wastewater facilities to be able to move freely across the state. They all do have to have a commissary where they would store goods and do their cleaning, resupplying, restocking, and where their commissary is located is where they should be obtaining their license from.
I've been hearing a lot of complaints about fire in Grand Forks, that it's a lot harder than it is in Fargo. And I was just trying to compare apples to apples.
So my understanding, and I could defer to Gary if he wanted to comment, is that the Grand Forks Fire Code, the code has changed, the statewide code has changed as well. It does require ANSEL systems over a Fryer unit, and that's not equally enforced across the state. I don't know if Gary wants to comment on this.
Chief Lorenz.
Yes, members of council. The code is this, all of the cities have, the major cities anyway, and the state code have followed the International Fire Code, the IFC code. However, as we do with any code, some cities will amend out portions of the code, others will not. Some will adopt it differently depending on the code. In Grand Forks, we have adopted the code as it's written by the IFC, as has Dickinson and Bismarck. Fargo eliminated, and so did Minot, I believe, the portion on extinguishing systems over the hoods. So we require those on the food trucks here locally, where they may not in Fargo, and I'm assuming that's what they're referring to.
Okay. Thank you.
No, it's all good.
Ms. Osowski.
So if they come in from other towns, they still have to apply with the city, correct? Or register?
Yeah, with this code change, it would be a fee waiver or a reduced fee, as you may direct in your motion.
Okay, and that can be anything we want to set?
Yeah, I mean, it could be zero. It's just the finance system doesn't work well with a zero figure.
Right. So can you tell me about, like, is it an application process, or like can they just come in, fill something out, pay their $1, and then operate?
I think the intention is basically that they would be able to come to finance and obtain their certificate as long as they had a license from another jurisdiction and a fire certificate that the fire department could review quickly.
Thank you.
Ms. Lonsky.
Sorry, I have one more question. So if they have a license in Fargo and they don't have a hood over their deep fryer, then they come here and we would approve them on their license from Fargo, so then they would not need that hood, or they wouldn't get a license here?
They should meet the local fire code to obtain that.
Okay.
And many of them do, and we would love to give them the reciprocity.
Thank you. I guess I have one question. How much work is it for city staff? Is $1 appropriate, or are you guys putting in some work where you would think that $1 is not appropriate based on the amount of work you all are doing?
You know, it's not very labor intensive on our part. It's just mainly keying in the information into the computer. It's basic information, name, address, phone number, email address, and then so we always send an electronic notification to fire and health department, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes of work, including issuing the license once it has its approvals. So, you know, nominal fee. The way our program works, you can't do a $0 fee. So in the past, when we've had some like child care centers, we would do a penny, and then before we can issue the license, you got to go back in and do the step of adjusting off the penny fees. So if we put a nominal fee on, it kind of saves us that extra administrative step. But you know, right now they're paying for a full maybe $175 fee or $140 fee to come here for the year. So even if we did $1 or $5, they're still going to come out ahead.
Perfect. Ms. Osowski?
So do these food vendors have to pay any kind of city tax then on the food that they sell?
They would be collecting sales tax on the prepared food just like any other restaurant in town.
And they would pay it towards the city?
Yeah, they would collect the state and the city sales tax and remit that to us. Or to the state, who then remit it back to us.
Okay.
Thank you. Further discussions or motions?
Move approval with $1 fee.
Okay.
I think we should make it a little higher. I mean, I think everybody's time at our city is valuable, and even if it just takes someone 10 minutes, I mean, that's, I don't know how much city employees, you know, make, but 10 minutes times 100, that adds up. So I'd like to see something more, even like $50, I guess, to make it worth our time.
I guess I was just balancing the city's recommendation as well as being, business friendly, and so I think there's a balance between there that makes sense. Certainly, I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts, I guess.
How many licenses do we issue a year?
I don't remember the exact figure off the top of my head. Currently, for this year, it looks like we have 44.
And how many of those would be asking for reciprocity?
So in the staff report, I did break it out a little bit. We have 2,530 from in-town vendors who would essentially continue to be licensed here because this is their base of operations. 985 was received from other non-local in-state vendors, and these would be the vendors that would probably benefit the most from it because it's not just the effect of not paying our full license fee. It would be the other jurisdictions subscribing to this. So instead of 9 licenses, they might have 1. And so that would all add up quite a bit for them. We do have out-of-state vendors, being so close to Minnesota, and they would need to get an in-state license from one of the jurisdictions. And I couldn't say exactly who they would go to. Being one of the close cities to them, they might very well choose us. That was $1,320 so far this year.
Thank you. I do believe we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to Mr. Kavami's motion? Second by Sam.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Not a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Bedard, who brought this request forward? Where did this come from?
This has been a topic of conversation for a couple years now even. We have vendors that come to town and they think they're licensed in the state. They have the state license, and we unfortunately have to inform them that they need a city license as well. And so there's been concerns there. We, of course, look at food safety first and have them come and get their license later if it's on a weekend. But it came from that and through Food and Lodging, directing the conversation of, is there a way to work with this industry in a better fashion? And I think everyone's been on board that this is the right thing to do for this group of people.
Sure. I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do, so don't take this the wrong way. Are there other cities that have reciprocity? So my issue is we have people in Grand Forks that we're expecting to pay us full licensing fee, yet people that are coming from outside of our community, Fargo, Bismarck, Minot, that we're not going to charge them. And I'm okay with that in general. I like the principle of it, but what goes through my head is, are the people that have licenses in Grand Forks, are they getting the same benefits elsewhere, or should we just not charge anyone?
Well, President Sandy, members of the committee, the intention would be that they would get a license from their home jurisdiction, and it's been a topic statewide, and everyone would be agreeing to it through their MOUs with the state Food and Lodging Department. So the intention is everyone would act similarly or not be offered the same reciprocity.
So do you know of other jurisdictions that are making the same request of their local governing bodies?
Well, yes, a lot of them moved to it last year. Ours required a code change that took a little bit more time, and that's what's before you today.
Great. I will second Mr. Kavami's motion. Thank you.
Perfect. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Mr. Bean?
The recommendation of $1, how did that come about, that we were looking at $1 versus a different amount? I mean, I agree with what Mr. Kwame says. We want to be business friendly. I also think we should at least cover our costs. It doesn't have to be making any money off of it. You know, that would be the only thing. I don't think we want to get rich or try to hamper anybody from doing this, but I'm thinking that there would be, and I don't think Finance Department is ready to probably give us a number right now of what that would be. So this is only preliminary approval. So I'd probably support the approval for now and ask that by council, if we looked at something else, we'd have some idea of what that might be.
Yes, certainly, we'll take a look at that. I want to also communicate with Mr. Bedard after and what the other communities are doing in a similar situation. So we'll come back with that recommendation next week.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3.4 is CPMA and PE reimbursement agreement for project 8722 reconstruct North 4th Street, 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue North. Mr. Kranko.
Thank you, Chairman Weigel and members of the committee. I'm joined here tonight with Carter Hunter. He's one of our senior civil engineers that we ended up hiring here in May, and hopefully you're going to be seeing more of him in the future. And with that, I'll hand it over to Carter.
Thanks, Dave. Chairman Weigel, members of the council, this project is the reconstruction of 4th Street in front of Central. It's part of the Beautify Downtown project. It consists of 2 standard agreements. It provides funds up to $2.44 million with the funding split 80.93% and 19.07% funded from the city here. Funding and necessary budget amendments were approved by the city on July 24th, 2023. The local share for this project is expected to be around $561,000. Just with that, we're looking for approval of the cost participation, construction and maintenance agreement, and preliminary engineering reimbursement.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Mr. Weigel?
Mr. Sandy.
I'm wondering how Mr. Hunter feels about this project in general. Does he think that this is going to be good for our community, or is it, like, I just wonder what his general feelings are.
I think it'll be great for downtown.
Great, then I'll move approval. Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
We have a motion by President Sandy, a second by Ms. Osowski. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item number 3.5, CPMA and planned specs for project 8718 32nd Avenue South, I-29 to South Washington, CPR and chip seal. Mr. Carter.
This project is the second half of the one from last year, which when the bids came back, they were 173% over the engineer estimate. Because this project was split into 2, so the first half was the mill and overlay and ADA ramps, which was completed this summer. The second half of the project will be concrete pavement repairs and chip seal. This project is currently scheduled to have bids open on October 13th, 2023. This project is currently not in the 2023 budget, but a budget amendment is requested. The local cost for this is expected to be around $205,000. With that, looking to approve cost participation and construction maintenance agreement, approve plan and specs, and any necessary budget amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Discussion motions by the committee. Move approval by, or question by Mr. Kabami.
Yeah, Mr. Hunter, same question. How do you feel about this?
Oh, we all saw the condition of 32nd Avenue this spring, so it's much needed.
Perfect. All right, I'll approve then.
Motion
to
by
approve. Yep.
Motion by Kabami, second by Osowski. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, Council.
Move on to item number 3.6, bids for project 8735 2023 stormwater or storm sewer pipe cleaning and lining.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening. This project takes care of a piece of pipe that is in need of repair. So I worked with the engineering department, and they estimated it would cost between $300,000 to $400,000 to remove and replace this pipe. It's about 14 feet down on 5th Street. That was just resurfaced this year, so not a great area, and there's a lot going on with the sidewalk and the curb and everything. So we went out for bid to line the pipe, and that came in a lot lower than the replacement. So we're looking for award the contract to Hydro Clean in the amount of $109,159.
Thank you, Ms. Severson. Comments? We got a motion by Kavami, second by Osowski. Further discussion, Mr. Bean?
Yeah, just a quick question. As you look at life cycle costs, this is quite a bit cheaper, but what's the longevity of this versus replacement?
They say, so this is a new technology for us, they say that it'll last just as long as concrete with the UV liner that they're going to use.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll see.
We'll see.
Perfect.
Hopefully, moving forward, it's a good use of our money rather than replacing them.
Awesome. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3.7, fats, oils, and grease control ordinance update.
Good evening, Chairman Weigel and members of the committee. Tonight before you, I have a proposed ordinance update for our fats, oils, and grease or FOG control program. As most of you are aware, the city maintains a national pollutant discharge elimination permit for the wastewater treatment facility, and as part of that permit, we're required to have a FOG control and abatement program. That program was put into place about, I think, 2010, and a fee structure in place in 2009. So over the years, we've been looking at our operational costs due to FOG, and we decided that it's time to update some of our fee structures and our ordinance. So the fee structure was approved for 2024 last week and as part of the budget process, and now we're looking at updating our ordinance. What this ordinance is going to do is do some clarification between food service establishments and FOG producing establishments, and also the requirements for those entities. Additionally, it allows us to add some additional technologies that have become available for FOG abatement and mitigation within our system. So what we're looking for tonight is approval of this draft ordinance and move it forward to next week for a first reading. I should mention, too, that we did work with the city attorney's office on these updates.
Thank you. Discussion by council. Mr. Sandy.
Just a quick question. Ms. Bontman, thanks for presenting tonight. Are the issues, the FOG issues getting worse over time, or are we seeing the same amount of sediment and fog, or just your general thoughts on it? Has it been getting worse? I mean, I know we're putting more emphasis on managing that. I'm just wondering if our managing it is enticing some of our commercial organizations to take advantage of that.
I think in certain areas it's gotten worse as we've become more dense in certain areas. I think our fee structure and revising that fee structure hasn't been revised since 2009 will hopefully provide some incentive for some of those entities that are not maybe following their best management practices as well as they should be. So I think, larger apartment buildings, as they go in and as we become more dense downtown, we've got a little bit older infrastructure in some of these areas. So we have seen a little bit more accumulation in certain areas of town as it's become more developed. But I think with these ordinances and we're going to increase our outreach again. And again, the updated fee structure, I think, will help with some of those entities, giving them a little incentive to do a better job at managing the grease and fats within their own facilities.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mrs. Husky.
I just want to make sure that I clearly understand this. So this has to do with fats, oil, and grease that gets accidentally put down the drain and then collects in our water system?
In our sanitary sewer system. So it can clog our pipes, clog our lift stations, and ultimately it can lead to backups within these facilities or within residential areas. And it's just, or sanitary sewer overflows out even into the street. So we need to maintain our pipes, keep them clean. Right. Yeah.
And then, so then people get charged a fee in accordance to how much fat, oil, and grease may potentially go down their drain?
So food service establishments, like your bigger restaurants that you would normally think of as producing a lot of grease, they're required in code to have a grease removal device. So whether that's an interceptor outside their facility, it'll collect that grease before it gets into the line, or grease traps under their sink, those sorts of things. They're required to have those and maintain those, and we do inspections of them, not overly frequently, but we check on them every once in a while just to make sure that they're maintaining those devices. So they'll be charged a certain fee. I should have mentioned our FOG costs and our proposed fee structure is in the back as a report. But depending on what device they have, that's kind of the fee structure. So what we're proposing for some of the other entities that, you think of your large apartment buildings, gas stations, churches, schools, hospitals, those types of entities might produce FOG, but they aren't necessarily a food service establishment. So that's why we needed to get some clarification in some of our structure too.
And then do the fees that we charge cover, the work that needs to be done, the maintenance that needs to be done due to the fat, oil, and grease being leaked down?
We're getting close. We're getting close. We to fully cover all of that at this point, it was going to be probably a pretty big jump for us from 2000, since we haven't updated our fee structures since 2009. So we did it this year. We did a pretty in-depth dive at our 2021 costs and looking at what we could possibly do to get that covered. And then, probably in the next year or two, we'll look at it again and see where we're at, and maybe need to increase some of those fees on some of those entities.
Great, thank you. I move approval.
We have a motion by Osowski, second by Mr. Veen. Is there any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item number 3.8, wastewater treatment plant phase 1 project 8403. Ms. Parvey.
Good evening, Chairman Weigel. My apologies, I've got my numbers mixed around in the staff recommendation, so that should be 8403 as well. But tonight we're asking for an amendment to our contract with A2S to oversee the construction services for phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant improvements. That was part of the project that was approved back in June. We haven't begun full construction, but that'll begin the first week in November. We have ordered some equipment, but we just haven't started the construction. The staff in our department, Carmen Severson, and then myself and Lisa Botnan, along with our wastewater treatment plant, we were able to do some of the work with our state revolving fund requirements. So we just worked with A2S on trying to find the best construction services oversight for them. They'll help us with the engineering components that are necessary, and then we'll help with some of the other requirements with the state funding. So we are asking for approval tonight for the amendment to that and associated budget amendments. I haven't had the chance to have Mr. Gosted and his team look at the agreement yet either. So if there are some changes, we'll bring those back to council next week, pending his review as well.
Thank you. Council discussion, motions.
Got
a motion by Mr. Sandy, second by Ms. Linsky. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We're making record time here. Item number 4, City Council member discussion matters. We'll start with Mr. Veen.
I would like to bring forth just a thought and idea that I've had for actually through several terms, and that is if we were ever to start looking at a little more strategic planning as we're getting out to look at a number of projects. Obviously, we're going to be spending some money on Epitome, which I think is a good step forward. We're talking about quality of life initiatives. In the past, we've looked at some things as investment at the UND and healthcare. There's a lot of different areas, and we're fairly diverse in that. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I guess I'm wondering if at some point we should be strategically looking at some place that we want to focus our growth on, and that we would be thinking about that, especially as future requests come forth for us, and how that should look. So I'm just throwing that out as something that we should put some thought into.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Mr. Gavami.
Yeah, just a comment to that. I think that the growth fund or the growth fund committee, strategic plan subcommittee, maybe. I think that was the outcome of that. All those conversations was the shift to quality of life and things like that, but then also to spend some efforts to understand, what's the point of it all? And I think that was a question that that was brought up, and I would agree. I think that's something that's needed.
Thank you, Mr. Ghavami. Ms. Lunsky? Thank you. Ms. Osowski? Nothing? I don't have anything. Motion to adjourn by Osowski, second by Ghavami. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.